licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Thank God It Is Friday edition, and the eagerly anticipated the Rittenhouse verdict. It has come down. We'll share it with you in just a moment. Luke on the board. Thank you, Luke, for getting me started. Fancy Brian taking a extended holiday break. Our thoughts on him as he travels today, and on all of you. I know you guys all will be going to Grandma's house soon. But the breaking news of the day, the Rittenhouse jury is back. And, you know, I hate to spoil the ending for you folks, but, and Luke, I'm going to need your help here because I'm going to play the sound. Here is how it sounded. We played this on Devil Radio 92.7 right here in Madison. We played the jury verdict coming down, being read by the clerk. Let's play it for the folks. This will be cut 1 and then followed shortly thereafter by cut number 2, the jury in the Rittenhouse trial in Kenosha. Here's the verdict, cut 1.
As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
As to the final 2 charges, you get the point, but let's play it for the people. Cut 2, please, Luke.
As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Now, Luke and I...
Jury, are these your unanimous verdicts?
It was. We broadcast this live, and Luke and I watched this live together. We watched the verdict. And I don't remember anticipating a verdict this much since OJ. I mean, really, I was a young camera guy working for ABC at the time, and I was at some big luncheon. Apparently, some notable had come to our little town. I was broadcasting out of La Crosse, Wisconsin at that time. And as it would happen, the OJ verdict was coming down, and they put it on the loudspeakers at this luncheon. And so I got a table full of people eating rubber chicken. And I just remember the looks, the jaws dropping, the reaction of people's faces. And, you know, it was just me and Luke, you know, that I could see in real time. But I can tell you the defendant, well, by the time they had read the third not guilty, Rittenhouse was quivering. And by the time the fourth one, I mean, the guy was ready to burst. And by the fifth one, he fell and they put him in a seat immediately. And he was obviously emotional. And, you know, he didn't burst into the same sort of histrionics as he did when he was on the stand. But it was clear, you know, you couldn't fake the tremor, the shaking in his arms. And his attorney, I'm not a lip reader, but he, you know, was telling him breathe. And Rittenhouse was given some water, and he sat there for a bit. And the judge did turn around, Judge Bruce Schrader. And the judge, he's been the Lance Ito of this affair. Schrader turned to the jury, and here is what he had to say. Luke, we're going to need your help. Cut 5, please.
You were a wonderful jury to work with. You were punctual. You were attentive. And the forgotten 6 over here who had a very difficult job of keeping from discussing the case during the time that they were sequestered as well. All of you, I couldn't have asked for a better jury to work with.
Good jury, bad verdict. Probably the proper verdict under the circumstance. the law in the state of Wisconsin, and Luke, thanks for having me join you on Dueling Tangents. As I stated on your show, the law in the state of Wisconsin makes the burden of proof so overwhelming for a prosecutor in a case of self-defense. And this was perhaps a burden that was never going to be reached or cleared. You know, you're never going to clear the reasonable doubt threshold beyond a reasonable doubt threshold when the events of this what perceived to be as a double murder, but apparently a justified shooting, they were so murky. And the motives and whether or not, you know, this Rosenbaum, the first, what I would call a victim, he's now dead, Rosenbaum, whether or not he actually threatened Rittenhouse. Well, Rittenhouse testified he did, but there was videotape all over the place and it never captured whether or not that happened. And the odd behavior of the judge, you know, whether it was chastising the prosecutor or, you know, allowing the defendant to eliminate the alternative through like a bingo like lottery in the courtroom. It was a strange trial. And it's perhaps a strange result. It's still daylight here in the state of Wisconsin, but you know, it's like 3:12 p.m. Central Time. It's going to be dark in like an hour and a half. And I'm wondering, because this cannot feel like justice. It doesn't feel like justice to me. I mean, I understand. I get the ruling. I don't like the ruling. I get the ruling. But it certainly doesn't feel like justice. I'd love to hear from the audience. You're encouraged to, you know, air your grievances, if you will, your Friday grievances. 844-967-2789. I'd love to hear from you. We've got some statements and lots of statements coming down on the Rittenhouse verdict. And I'm going to need Luke, but Luke's working on the phones and some of the early callers of the hour. Once again, that number, 844-967-2789. Now, Joe Biden was asked about this, and Joe Biden's response was effectively, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch the trial. Well, I get that. Joe Biden's got a lot on his plate. Celebrating a birthday today with a colonoscopy. Not a good time as far as I'm concerned for, you know, that's not what I would be doing on my, I believe it might be a 78th, 79th birthday. But Joe Biden had gotten out pretty early, and Joe Biden made a statement before the trial that Rittenhouse was a white supremacist. Well, Rittenhouse certainly was photographed at a bar with a 3%er. His mama took him to a bar and he wore a t-shirt free as F. And he was, you know, hanging out, taking selfies with some 3%ers, some white supremacist types. So perhaps he was not a white supremacist, but, you know, he was certainly white supremacist adjacent. But Joe Biden, I would think, and the slowness of his response to the question, you know, effectively, do you have any regrets? Do you need to restate what you said about him? And Biden's only response is, you know, you got to trust the jury system. Yes, but that's not exactly the question the president was asked. 844-967-2789. I asked for your opinions, and we're getting them, and they're loading up. So let's go to the phones. Plenty of time today. We'll keep the lines open all day long. 844-96 doesn't feel like a party. Don from Madison. Welcome, Don. What's your thoughts?
Well, I have many thoughts, but one of my first ones is that now that Rittenhouse is free, I see no reason for the jury in Georgia to find any one of those three guys guilty. So they'll go free. And
I mean the Ahmaud Arbery trial. Well, they're different circumstance, obviously.
Right, but still, well, the difference here is, you know, this is white on white crime. This is a race crime, white on white. And so it's white jury, white victim, white shooter. In Georgia, it's worse because it's white shooters, white jury, except for one person of color, and then the victim is black. So that case, I believe both cases were over before they started. Do you
think, Don, do you honestly think that this trial, I mean, I understand there's a subtext, there's an undertone. It was a Black Lives Matter protest. The right. Resulting quote unquote riotous behavior in Kenosha was directly related to a black man named Jacob Blake being shot in the back by cops, and people were outraged and people marched in the streets and stuff got burned, and you know, it became a riot. The National Guard got called out, and then guys like Rittenhouse felt like they had license to come and, you know, protect a car dealership or do a little
But
shooting.
The judge kind of equated the victims as criminals by wishing to call them all rioters and looters. I mean, so that sealed the fate of the whole thing right there. Because
Yes
the jury license.
yes and no, Don. I don't disagree with you, but I want to draw a modest distinction. He said, if you offered proof or evidence that they were rioting or looting, you may therefore call them rioters or looters. I don't think the judge just gave the defense team free license. I was watching when that happened. I agree, Don. When the judge says you can't call them victims, but this has been a hard on this guy's head for a long time. I don't know why, but he never allows you to describe the people as victims in his court. And he apparently always allows this lottery system for elimination of jurors. And I don't know why. He's just a quirky old man, Don.
This is going to give the white supremacists, in the white,
undoubtedly
the white counties license to go and do things. But shouldn't someone say then, well, thank you, Rittenhouse. You just showed us that we could go to Trump rallies with our AR-15s. And as soon as one of those Trump turds comes at us, we can shoot them because now it's self-defense. Because I was afraid they're going to take my AR-15 and use it on me. So really, anybody with an AR-15 can go to a Trump rally right now and do the same thing.
Here's the problem. I mean, I get the sentiment, but Don, you don't want to kill somebody. You're not looking for a justification to go kill a Trumpster, right? I mean, you've called me enough times. I don't know you, Don, but you're not a murderer in your heart. And I'm not saying Rittenhouse was a murderer in his heart, but he was certainly a vigilante in his heart. And he may have been acquitted, but that doesn't mean he's not guilty, or pardon me, that doesn't mean he's innocent. And that doesn't mean he is morally blameless, Don. Because I know a guy like you, or at least, and Don, I appreciate you listening, man. I keep stepping on you. But there's no way I'd be looking for a loophole to justifiably go shoot a Trumpster or my worst enemy. Because morally, and I don't know if it's the whole biblical thou shalt not kill, but maybe my mama just raised me right. Maybe that's where Rittenhouse and I differ a little bit. My mama raised me a little bit differently. I value human life. Come back with us. We value all our callers here. The Rittenhouse jury, they're back. Not guilty on all charges. Surprising? Maybe not. More Devil's Advocates, more of your calls next.
Right now, we all feel a little disconnected. For seniors living alone, the isolation can be overwhelming. Connect with an older loved one and have the conversation of a lifetime at StoryCorrEconnect.org/AARP. A message from AARP, StoryCorps, and the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Is it safe?
It's okay to have questions. Now, get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so that you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hi, Don from Wisco Home Goods here. Jeremy and I handcraft our 100% non-toxic candles from locally sourced materials in our Madison, Wisconsin facility. Wisco Home Goods candles come in a variety of unique blends and scents that you're sure to love. Add a little warmth to your home as the days get colder with one of our Midnight Cypress or Up North candles. Order at wiscohomegoods.com. Natural, healthy, nourishing candles and more at wiscohomegoods.com.
The Devil's Advocates, because
Freedom.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a Friday edition. The Rittenhouse jury, they're back, not guilty on all charges. And there is lots of reaction out there in the world and lots of reaction from our audience. We're going to take more of your calls in just a moment. Be patient. 844-967-2789. Here are a couple of the immediate reactions. Let me see what the politicians had to say. Here is reportedly what Joe Biden said. I heard this soundbite. I don't think we need to play it again. Sort of loud on a tarmac. While the verdict in Kenosha will leave many Americans feeling angry and concerned, myself included, we must acknowledge the jury has spoken. Now, that was President Joe Biden responding to an AP reporter. The question, though, was, do you regret calling Rittenhouse a white supremacist? More from the president. I ran on a promise to bring Americans together because I believe what unites us is far greater than what divides us. I know we're not going to heal our country's wounds overnight, but I remain steadfast in my commitment to do everything in my power to ensure that every American is treated equally with fairness and dignity under the law. Biden urged for peace in the statement, saying, violence and destruction have no place in our democracy, and said he spoke with Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers Friday to offer assistance. So what did the governor of the state of Wisconsin have to say? Evers says, no verdict will be able to bring back the lives of Anthony Huber and Joseph Rosenbaum or heal Gage Grosskreutz injuries, just as no verdict can heal the wounds or trauma experienced by Jacob Blake and his family. No ruling today changes our reality in Wisconsin that we have a lot of work to do towards equality, accountability, and justice that communities across our state are demanding and deserve. A little bit more here. We must move forward together, more united and more motivated to build the sort of future we want for our state, one that is just, one that is equitable, one where every person has resources and the opportunity to thrive, and I will not stop working to achieve that vision. He said more. His Lieutenant Governor, Mandela Barnes, who is a U.S. senatorial candidate, hopes to be the opponent of Ron Johnson. He's a black man. Mandela said this: over the last few weeks, many dreaded the outcome we just witnessed. We have seen so many black and brown youth killed, only to be put on trial posthumously. I forget that word. Say it for me, Luke.
Posthumously.
Not humorously.
Posthumously.
Humorously. While the innocence of Kyle Rittenhouse was virtually demanded by the judge, this is just another example of the difficult road to justice in America. And while we can easily view this as a setback, we have to turn this into a moment to push even harder by staying engaged, by organizing for justice. Across Wisconsin and across the country, countless people are coming together to remember Jacob, Anthony, JoJo, and call for justice. Now, what about the right? A somewhat different reaction from our friends across the aisle, and I hardly call them friends now. Former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Clayfish, she was the LT under Scotty Wanker. I would point out she got the coveted Ted Nugent endorsement today. The Ted Nugent, wang, bang, sweet, that song. Cat Scratch Fever.
Was Evers vying for that the Ted Nugent endorsement? Yeah, I don't know if that was a competition, though.
Well, Nugent is the spokesman for Hunter Nation. I actually saw Joel Clayfish bragging. Pretty cool when Ted Nugent endorses your wife. And I'm thinking, not my household.
Yeah, and I think maybe he could have endorsed somebody else that would jump in this race against Clayfish in the Republican primary, but I don't think Evers was vying for that endorsement.
Clayfish said, our justice system worked today. The prosecution in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial was a complete disgrace, praising the mob who burned our streets as heroes. She said worse than that, but that's all of the statement quoted here. And one more, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson.
I've got the rest of Clayfish.
Oh, let's hear the rest of Clayfish.
I got it up. The tragic events that took place in Kenosha were unnecessary and avoidable. Lives were lost and businesses and livelihoods were destroyed, while Tony Evers sat on the sidelines choosing lawlessness over law enforcement. As your governor, I'll always stand for law and order.
So the current governor, according to the wannabe next governor, wanted Wisconsin to burn, sat on his hands.
Well, I believe, and something that the right has claimed over and over again, that Evers sat on his hands and did not react fast enough to what was going on in Kenosha. But PolitiFact Wisconsin rated that claim as false.
Didn't play his violin?
Apparently not.
She launched her whole campaign. She didn't say her own name for 37 seconds in her launch video. Rebecca Clayfish, this Trumpist wannabe, next governor of the state of Wisconsin, basically embraced Trump and cast as much shade on Tony Evers as she could because of the circumstance of Kenosha. Basically, let it burn.
Donald Trump used the background of things like Kenosha to claim it. This is what will happen in Joe Biden's America, not mentioning the fact that it was taking place while he was president.
Happening under Donald Trump's America. U.S. Senator Ron Johnson used to be a friend of this show. Used to be. I believe justice has been served in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Of course, Rojo's believes that. I hope everyone can accept the verdict. Soon as you accept the outcome of the last election, Ron, remain peaceful and let the community of Kenosha heal and rebuild. Oh, man, kiss my butt, Ron. Come back with us. Plenty of people on the phones. Your reactions will be next. You can text, you can call 844-967-2789. Or if you're one of those kids today, you can tweet us at Devil Radio. That's where Luke first found out that the Rittenhouse verdict was about to drop.
And I'm on the Twitter right now, and I got Speaker Robin Voss's response if you'd like to hear it real quick.
Oh, if you think we got time.
Yeah, today's unanimous verdict was shocking for some, but for others, it is proof that our justice system works. The right to trial by a jury of your peers is a fundamental part of checks and balances in our country. Let's hope the politicians who disagree with the verdict don't use this as an opportunity to sow more division and destruction in our community. For those disappointed in the outcome, I urge peace and unity over violence and destruction. Speaker Robin Voss.
You know, I got the wanker statement as well. Maybe we'll share that on the other side and your calls. 844-967-2789. It's a Friday.
You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 and WTTN 1580 AM. And that's pretty cool.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Darcy Haber, I hear you have solar panels on your office building. Since when are real estate brokers so concerned about the environment?
Drew, you should know that at Solidarity Realty, we provide outstanding real estate service while adhering to our core progressive values. Environmental sustainability is a big part of that.
So you really walk your talk, huh?
Yeah, I even walk to work.
Come on, always.
Well, sometimes I bike, and if I have an appointment across town, I use my solar panels to charge my plug-in.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Check them out at Solidarity Realty.
Coronavirus update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished mixed. The Dow finished down 268 points. Advisors at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say they support expanding coronavirus vaccine boosters to all adults. This is advisor Dr. Camille Nelson.
I am really glad that we have clarity and streamlining of the recommendations so that all Americans can understand the vaccines that are recommended for them at this time.
The CDC's advisor said anyone 18 and older can choose a booster of the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine, but went an extra step and stressed people 50 and older should get one. A CDC report says pregnant women with the coronavirus face increased chances for stillbirths compared with uninfected women. Austria announced a national lockdown and a plan to mandate vaccinations as infections there hit a record high today, forcing the government in Austria to walk back promises that strict shutdowns were a thing of the past. I'm Ed Donnie.
Now streaming on Paramount Plus. This is a company town, and the business is incarceration. A new original series from the co-creator of Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan. Your influence within the prisons is unique. Jeremy Renner. We don't break the law, we bend it. Diane Wiest.
You fix it, men, part-time gangsters.
And Kyle Chandler. If you want to know who's running what, come to me. I'm the mayor of Kingstown. Mayor of Kingstown, now streaming on Paramount Plus. Go to ParamountPlus.com to try it for free. My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Due to distortions in data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, Wisconsin's unemployment rate for the months of September and October were lower than previously reported. Preliminary data had the state's unemployment rate at 3.9% in September, but with adjusted numbers, it was truly 3.4% and dropped even further to 3.2% in October, significantly below the nation's rate for October, which was 4.6%. October was the lowest unemployment rate Wisconsin has experienced since March 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic began. The Wisconsin Public Service Commission rejected an effort to block the 465-megawatt Koshkonong Solar Energy Center from being built and then sold to a Wisconsin utilities company. Opponents say the permitting process is not the same for developers as it is for utility companies and claim consumers may be past the higher costs. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, rock and roll political commentary in a top 40 world.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Friday edition. Normally we keep it a little bit lighter on Friday. It's hard to do so today. We've got a jury verdict in the Rittenhouse trial, not guilty on all counts. I'm not going to say I'm shocked or even surprised. Here is a statement from what I will call the victim's family. There was no justice today for Anthony Huber or for Mr. Rittenhouse's other victims, Joseph Rosenbaum, Engage Grosskreutz, Karen Bloom, and John Huber, said in a statement that was released minutes after the verdict was announced in a Kenosha, Wisconsin courtroom. Of course, that verdict, not guilty on all counts. Here's what they said. Today's verdict means there is no accountability for the person who murdered our son. It sends the unacceptable message that armed civilians can show up in any town, incite violence, and then use the danger they have created to justify shooting people in the street. Calling their son a hero who sacrificed his own life to protect other innocent civilians, the parents vowed to fight on. Neither Mr. Rittenhouse nor the Kenosha police, who authorized his bloody campaign, will escape justice. Anthony will have his day in court. 844-967-2789, the Court of Public Opinion. It's open right now. We're taking your testimony at 844-967-2789. Lori from Northern California, probably listening on KGOE 1480. Lori, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I can't believe it. I mean, this kid, he didn't even get a reckless endangerment charge. And I'm here in California, and I'm not real familiar with the gun laws in Wisconsin, but it just looks like, any minor can just go in and so easily acquire these kind of weapons and then claim self-defense. And one way or the other, it's just going to bring out of the woodworks more Kyle Rittenhouses. And the thing is, with his recklessness, it could have been a shooting at a school or a church. And I just really agree with you that his acquittal does not mean he's innocent or morally blameless. And there's going to be problems with that whole judgment. But I was just wondering too. I mean, I guess that there's no civil case that can be brought against him.
Well, I'm not clear that there's not a civil case, Lori. There very well may be a civil case. And I think that's what the parents of one of the victims were implying in their statement when they say our son, Anthony Huber, will have a day in court. I strongly suspect they mean in the civil courts, in the federal courts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope to see that. But yeah, no, the verdict really blew my mind. I mean, I expected him to be at least convicted on one of the lesser charges, and that he was not even convicted on a reckless endangerment charge.
Lori, a couple of thoughts. Reckless endangerment, to my understanding, was not an offered charge. Some people said that the prosecutor overcharged. The prosecutor went for life in prison. And then basically charged the same charge 4 times over. And then the judge did allow, as part of the jury instructions, like second-degree intentional homicide and some of these, and I may be mischaracterizing, but lesser charges, but not things like reckless endangerment. And ultimately, the statute of self-defense, the provocation of self-defense, very confusing in the instructions to the jury. But what constitutes self-defense? Can you go and start a fight, and then when the guy wants to beat your ass, can you then claim self-defense and shoot them dead? Well, you know, he could hurt me, so I've got to defend myself. But it's very confusing under law, much like the OJ case, Lori, and maybe that's a bad parallel. I see more maybe in the George Zimmerman circumstance, where it feels very unjust, the finding in a criminal trial. But I think ultimately, Lori, perhaps there will be a differing verdict and a different standard, where it's not, you know, the prosecution has to overcome an unduly high standard and burden in the criminal courts. They just have to have the preponderance of evidence in the civil court. You know, if you win 51-49, that's still a win in the civil courts, Lori.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I hope so. I really hope what you're saying. No, yeah.
Well, I'm not predicting. I'm just saying there is another venue and it may be a differing outcome. Lori, appreciate you listening up in Humboldt County. 844-967-2789. We appreciate our listeners all across the nation. You know, Devil Radio app or on your local affiliate. Scott from Monona, you're next. Welcome, Scott. What's your thought?
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I guess the first comment I'd make is if there had been appropriate parental supervision, Rittenhouse never would have been there. But the fact of the matter is he was there. And I think you do still have to question the judgment of grown men chasing a 17-year-old with a loaded weapon down a street, and have to understand that had to have factored into the jury's verdict.
No, certainly it did. And I think that under that whole provocation part of the statute, effectively you can reset provocation. So if I punch you in the nose and then run away and then you chase me, I could turn around and shoot you, as I understand the statute of self-defense in the state of Wisconsin. In essence, if you try to leave the scene, then you can effectively reset your defense, if that makes sense. It's like you get a do-over.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Well, how
under the law,
and I don't think the prosecutor did an overwhelmingly strong job. I think he certainly had his misfires. Grosskreutz as a witness for the prosecution seemed a lot more like a witness for the defense. Let's say, you know, there were some real questionable calls, but I thought he did a great job at closing. I thought the prosecutor's closing far stronger than perhaps any other part of his case, and the fact that these jurors deliberated for 3+ days. And they were very thoughtful, and they obviously considered all these factors, but ultimately they were constrained by what they could consider. And the Grosskreutz testimony, that specific victim who got his arm shot, it could never be talked away. The fact that he pointed a gun, and once he pointed the gun, Rittenhouse shot him. And that was self-defense. And the rest of it all got muddled in. But that incident, I think, Scott, is what got him acquitted.
I agree, 100%.
Appreciate your call, Scott. Thanks for listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Be like Scott. Call us. Your opinions are welcome here. We'll talk more about other topics than just the Rittenhouse. But this has obviously been an overwhelming story in the state of Wisconsin. I mean, we had shootings and riots, and National Guard calls out. 500 National Guard troops have been activated. They're on the scene in Kenosha. We're probably about an hour until dark. So, you're going to have to watch overnight to see what the reaction on the street is. But we'll keep offering coverage right here on Devil Radio 92.7. And I'll keep taking your phone calls and your text and your tweets, starting at 844-967-2789. Fred from Cottage Grove, you're next. Welcome, Fred.
Hey, good afternoon, if you call it good.
Yeah.
Hey, you mentioned OJ's case too. He got acquitted, but there's a big civil case against him, and he lost millions of dollars.
Yes, sir.
But that's going to happen again, I think. I mean, it should, I think.
Well,
personally,
you would like to see something like that come. Fred, my concern is suddenly this Rittenhouse kid is not a martyr. He's a hero. He's going to be canonized by the right. This guy will be doing the Fox News circuit in no time. He'll make lots of money. Ultimately, there's lots of money in being a darling for the right. I mean, Rittenhouse could lose that trial and still come out financially better off than being the broke, dumb ass 17-year-old kid who had enough money. I think he used PPP money. I think he used money from his boss to acquire this weapon or to pay for it.
Yeah, that's some other issues too about his mother bringing him across state lines and stuff. And he was 17 at the time with a rifle. But I'm afraid too, you're right. It's going to encourage more right-wing people to push the law.
No, Fred. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying no, Fred. Like, no, you are right on target here, sir. It could be an encouragement to others. And I suspect David Duke's out there somewhere celebrating. And I suspect whether or not he is an avowed white supremacist, I think he has been adopted by the white supremacist community because, of course, this Rittenhouse stood up to the Black Lives Matter protesters, the mob, the rioters, as of course they will be described. 844-967-2789. Wondering what you think. Another weird story. Did you hear Congressman Matt Gaetz? You know that guy, soon to be indicted in his own regard, and I think he will be convicted because he's not going to have a self-defense for I had sex with underage women and paid them on a Venmo account and called it tuition. I think he will soon be indicted. Matt Gaetz, I think, up to his eyeballs in legal troubles of his own, but he's always looking for a headline. And Matt Gaetz came out and said, I can't wait for Kyle Rittenhouse to be vindicated, exonerated apparently, because I'm going to make him my intern up here at the U.S. Capitol. Now I'm thinking, what a fine intern you've got there. The 17-year-old wannabe, maybe he's, the right kind of compliant for Matt Gaetz. But, here's where the story gets even a little bit more twisted and weird. Paul Gosar, who is the Republican congressman who spoke at the January 6th, I think he was the one that was there to kick ass and take names. Well, that Paul Gosar, who is probably criminally implicit or complicit in what happened in the January 6th, although that's just an allegation at this point, no charges leveled, no convictions yet. So, I threw my allegedly out there for the sake of those that might want to sue me later. But Matt Gaetz said, I want Rittenhouse to be my intern. And Paul Gosar said, no, I want him to be mine. And apparently Gosar is going to, challenge Rittenhouse to an arm wrestling match for Kyle Rittenhouse's soul. The defendant stood trial after fatally shooting 2 people and wounding a third with an AR-15 rifle during the Black Lives Matter protest in Kenosha on August 25th, 2020. Republicans praised the jury for finding Rittenhouse not guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, attempted first-degree intentional homicide, first-degree reckless homicide, and first-degree recklessly endangering safety. So there was, to the prior caller, I think it was Lori from Humboldt, Apparently, there was an endangering safety count. The jury did not convict on that. But disgraced Rep. Paul Gosar, censured this week, had to stand there and take his ass kicking. Said he would arm wrestle Rep. Matt Gaetz to see who could claim the 18-year-old as an intern. Justice was served for hashtag Kyle Rittenhouse, and he is fully exonerated. As I said last year, obviously self-defense. I will arm wrestle Matt Gaetz to get dibs for Kyle as an intern. Gaetz told Newsmax on Wednesday night that he wanted to hire Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse would probably make a pretty good congressional intern. We may reach out to him and see if he'd be interested in helping the country in additional ways. Hear what a few other prominent Republicans are saying. J.D. Vance, not guilty. America is not over yet. Marjorie Taylor Greene, wonder what she had to say. Well, here it is. Kyle Rittenhouse acquitted on all charges. May Kyle and his family now live in peace. Those who help protect and defend are the good guys. Kyle is one of good ones. Her grammar, not mine. See who else we got. Thomas Massey. Start to think. Time to start the lawsuits for defamation by the media. You know, because some people thought he was guilty. Tom Cotton, Senator. Joe Biden needs to publicly apologize to Kyle Rittenhouse. The House Judiciary, GOP. One word, justice. And here's one for Matt Gaetz, the aforementioned arm wrestling wannabe, soon to be, probably convicted sexual offender. Matt Gaetz says, Kyle Rittenhouse committed no crimes. Unlike me, acquitted on all counts, all caps. Now do BLM. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates, more of your phone calls. 844-967-2789. It's Friday. We air the grievances.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Spruce up your home with non-toxic vegan candles from Wisco Home Goods. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our candles are 100% sustainable and come in a variety of unique blends and scents that make a perfect holiday gift. Plus, at Wisco Home Goods, we believe in giving back. With our Do Good, Smell Good campaign, a portion of the proceeds go to local charities. So support a Midwestern company that supports our local communities. Order now at wiscohomegoods.com.
Here's today's STEM tip. Don't throw out that old plastic bottle. Repurpose it by turning it into an awesome terrarium. Just fill it with sand, pebbles, soil, and your favorite plant. It'll grow sealed right in its own ecosystem. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
The tear gas changed the crowd's demeanor. There was an air of disbelief as people realized that the police whom they supported were firing on them. What are you doing? We support you, someone yelled. All of a sudden, pro-police people felt the police were attacking them, and they didn't know why. The pro-police crowd went from disbelief and confusion to anger.
The police instigated the crowd, right? The police were the oppressors here. So, Ron, Black Lives Matter?
I don't know, but I'm suspicious.
Listen to Devil's Advocates weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We've got a verdict in the Rittenhouse trial, not guilty on all counts. The Arbery trial, the Ahmaud Arbery murder trial, that one's still going on. We got a little bit of an update from there. According to the defense attorney, you know, this guy's been raising a ruckus because Al Sharpton came to sit with the Arbery family, and then, God forbid, it was the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And then he complained, how many black pastors does his family have? Well, today, this defense attorney has said black protesters outside turned Ahmaud Arbery murder trial into a public lynching of his white killers. The defense attorney of one of the men charged in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery compared the prosecution to a public lynching. Attorney Kevin Coe, who is representing Willie, call him Roddy Bryant Jr. in the trial, complained that black protesters outside the Georgia courthouse were a violent mob seeking vigilante justice. This is what a public lynching looks like in the 21st century, Coe said. Just because they haven't put a gallery up, just because, oh, damn it, where'd that go? Just because they haven't put a gallery up, just because they haven't put up a podium up outside with the hangman's noose on it. No, that's down at the Capitol in D.C. You know, January 6th, they brought that round back to a statement. Just because they haven't put a podium up outside with the hangman's noose on it doesn't mean that this isn't a trial, despite the best efforts of this court, that this isn't a trial that's been affected by mob violence of the woke left mob. The woke left mob. I think he means you people. Whether people realize that they participated in that or not, I'd like to think that the vast majority of people outside the courthouse really have no interest in anything but justice. I want to believe that from a lot of people out there. I think that's true. But the perception is reality, Coe added. And the media fed that perception and created a reality, whether it's true or not, just like other people to create a false narrative. And the falsity of that narrative is very apparent in the trial of this case. That becomes the reality. That is what the mob-dominated trial looks like in the 21st century. And we're asking for a mistrial. So anyways, that's your brief update from the Arbery trial. You still got a ranting defense attorney. My understanding is one of the defendants' team approached prosecutors earlier today and said, too late to make a deal? Might be. Probably a little too late to make a deal. So anyways, Arbery, maybe a differing outcome in the Georgia courthouse. And I know, I think it was Don earlier in the show, talked about the fact, the optics of a white on white crime, or apparently white on white crime. Although I would point out the jump kick man that was referenced earlier in the Rittenhouse, a black man sort of did a side jump kick and tried to kick Rittenhouse in the head. And Rittenhouse shot at least a couple bullets his way, did not strike him. But I've heard this in different various ways on Whitey Talk Radio. Well, all Rittenhouse's victims were white. Yeah, except for the black man he missed. It was a Black Lives Matter protest, and he was there, cross state lines, came up north to protect some car dealership that didn't want him there, or maybe they did, but ultimately you don't have the right to go protect somebody else's property. But the Arbery case, on video, I heard it said earlier, if you want to claim there's no racial undertones, then maybe you should have pulled the Confederate license plate off your car before you chased the guy down and shot him dead. And this was another circumstance, this Arbery trial. A guy had a shotgun, and he claimed, well, Arbery tried to disarm him of the shotgun. Well, if Arbery had gotten his shotgun, well, then he would have had a fear for his life. So he killed Arbery. See how that works? We will see if the jury, let's just say, comes to a similar, what I perceive to be unjust conclusion. And it's not that the law was not served in the Rittenhouse verdict, because I think the law was served. This is probably the conclusion I would have expected, predicated on the statutes in the state of Wisconsin. But it's certainly not morally the right answer. It's certainly not justice, at least not to my opinion. So now we've got to turn our attentions to the Arbery verdict. And real quick, here, according to the Raw story, legal expert explains why Arbery defendant is reportedly seeking a plea deal, according to the Raw story, reacting to a CBS report that attorney for William Roddy Bryan, that's the same guy complaining about the black lynch mob outside the courthouse seeking a mistrial, the man accused of helping box in Ahmaud Arbery and then filmed the encounter as Gregory and Travis McMichael pursued and fatally shot him, asked for a plea deal and was turned down. Do you think if the Rittenhouse defense team had approached Thomas Binger, the prosecutor in his trial, like a week ago, do you think if they'd approached him and said, our guy will plead guilty and serve 3 to 5, do you think they would have offered that deal, accepted that deal? Well, the deal in Georgia was turned down by the prosecutor. A former prosecutor and defense attorney both stated on CNN that the defense knows it's playing a losing hand, and in Georgia, they're looking for an out. With the Bryan attorney, Kevin Go, telling reporters on Friday morning, the report is BS, and then repeating, deny, repeatedly. CNN's Ellie Honig and defense attorney Bernarda Villalona, sorry, I haven't been watching that trial as closely, said if true, it basically is an admission of defeat. Speaking with the host, Honig confirmed. So this does happen sometimes, very rarely. It happened to me in a handful of times. While a jury was out deliberating, a defense lawyer said, would you be interested in a plea? My answer was always a no. As a general rule, as a prosecutor, you don't take a plea while the jury is out if you have any confidence in your case. The natural inference we draw is that there's some concern about this defendant, about the strength of the government's case against them. If you're looking for a plea, I think you think you're going to be convicted. Also important, this lawyer represents William Bryan, one of the 3 defendants in the case. The evidence is the weakest against William Bryan. He's the guy in the follow car, the neighbor. So it's interesting that he, of the 3 defendants, if true, was the one interested in pleading. Guilty, but not the Rittenhouse. Not guilty out of all charges. That was the big breaking news, dropped early afternoon today. We played it live right here on Devil Radio 92.7. We've been taking your reactions all day long. I'm sure Earl Ingram will turn back to this topic at 5, but I'm going to turn our attention, or my attention, the Devil's attention, to some other topics. Had a big victory this morning in the House of Representatives. The Build Back Better, it passed. And Joe Biden celebrates a birthday with a colonoscopy. And apparently, Vice President Kamala Harris, for a brief time in history, became the first female president of the United States, the acting first female president. Well, it appears Joe is doing just fine. He's back at the White House, back giving sound bites this afternoon. The general anesthesia he was under wore off. I had to take the afternoon off. I'd have tuned in to the Devil's Advocates radio show, and I'd have kept it locked all the way till I got home at 5. Come back. More Devils. Hour 2 is next.
We face real challenges. My name is Peter Pekarsky, and I approve this ad stating that I'm running for the U.S. Senate to replace Ron Johnson because some people see things as they are and ask why. Others dream things that could be and ask why not. Why not provide health care as a basic right? Why not have broadband all over Wisconsin? Why not end systemic racism? Why not send a real progressive to the Senate? Visit PekarskyForWisconsin.com and support this ad paid for by Pekarsky for Wisconsin.
Hey, Joanne, I hear you have a Tech Protect plan from Community PC.
I have been having services since 2013. He provides monthly maintenance for me. He is able to attach to my computer so he can figure out what my problems are. I'm very computer illiterate. If I had to call somebody on the telephone, I would probably not be able to follow through with that.
Community PC. We know what makes seniors happy.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue in Kenosha, Wisconsin, on all the counts.
We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Rittenhouse claimed self-defense in the deadly shootings that became a flashpoint in the nation's debate over guns and racial injustice. 3 people were shot in the parking lot today of a high school in Aurora, Colorado. The school is in lockdown. Also from Aurora, the city agreed to pay $15 million to settle a lawsuit by the parents of Elijah McClain, a black man who died after police stopped him on the street and put him in a neck hold 2 years ago. The government has moved to allow coronavirus booster shots for all adults. Here's the AP's Sagar Magani.
The FDA says anyone 18 and over can pick either a Pfizer or Moderna booster 6 months after their last dose. About a dozen states were already offering the shots on their own, amid complaints that federal regulations on who could get them were too confusing.
We heard loud and clear that people needed something simpler. And this, I think, is simple.
Hours after FDA vaccine chief Peter Marks talked to the AP, CDC advisors like Dr. Camille Nelson Cotton agreed.
So that all Americans can understand the vaccines that are recommended for them at this time.
The CDC advisors went even further, stressing people 50 and over should get a booster. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Presidential power was briefly transferred today to Vice President Kamala Harris. President Biden had a colonoscopy.
I feel great. Nothing's changed. We're in good shape. And so, I'm looking forward to celebrating my 58th birthday.
The president's 79th birthday is tomorrow. Earlier in the House,
we have made our statement today. We have stood the test.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi, after passage of a social and environment bill, changes are expected in the Senate. Stocks finished mixed. The Dow down 268 points. This is AP News.
Now streaming on Paramount Plus. This is a company town, and the business is incarceration. A new original series from the co-creator of Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan. Your influence within the prisons is unique. Jeremy Renner. We don't break the law, we bend it. Diane Wiest.
You fix-it men, part-time gangsters.
And Kyle Chandler. If you want to know who's running what, come to me. I'm the mayor of Kingstown. Mayor of Kingstown. Now streaming on Paramount Plus. Go to ParamountPlus.com to try it for free. My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that? It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
I'm here with Todd Osborne from Orion Inspections. Todd, customer service, it's pretty important, especially when you're the guy and you will literally be the person going into someone's home, be it a radon inspection, be it a home inspection. Todd, what can people expect when you knock on the door?
Well, I'll tell you what, Crudy, I spent a number of years as a painter, and I was in and out of people's homes all the time. And, one thing about painting is you don't want to drip anything on anybody's stuff. So I take a lot of great care to take care of the home as if it were my own. One thing about a home inspection, too, is it is a non-invasive inspection. So we don't really touch anything. We don't move anything. But I have a great deal of respect for people's belongings.
Now, Todd, I spoke with a client of yours very recently, and they were quite impressed. Visual inspection of the attic, and it was difficult to get to the attic. Then you pulled out your camera and you allowed them to have a visual inspection, even though they were incapable of going up into the home's attic. Is that part of the service that Orion Inspections offers?
There's a bare minimum standard operating procedures that we have. But that is just a bare minimum. I try to take it just at least a little bit further. I don't want to go too crazy to have people expect certain things out of me all the time. But yeah, I will go above and beyond in order to at least get it, like with the attic, be able to get my eyeballs on it somehow to at least see what's going on upstairs.
And Todd Osborne, you're advertising on Devil Radio, so that must make you a good person. If you'd like a home inspection or a radon inspection from Orion Inspections, call our friend Todd. He's going to be the one that comes knocking on your door, and you want him there because he's a trained professional. He's certified. He is Todd Osborne from Orion Inspections. Find them online at orioninspections.com. Not like the Irish guy, like the constellation, orioninspections.com.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Thursday, Governor Tony Evers followed through from statements he made throughout the redistricting process and vetoed the legislative and congressional maps sent to him by the Republican-led Wisconsin legislature for being what he called gerrymandering 2.0. The veto sends the redistricting battle to the courts, with lawsuits currently filed with the Wisconsin Supreme Court and the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. In the recent past, the federal courts have been the body to adjudicate redistricting battles in Wisconsin during times of split government. However, the Wisconsin Supreme Court agreed to hear the case and has set a timeline to rule on maps by January 28th. A mix of sunshine and cloud coverage in the forecast today, with winds up to 15 miles an hour and a high of 39 degrees. Overcast skies expected to roll in this afternoon and continue throughout the evening. Overnight low is 32 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Friday 4 o'clock happy hour. Although a lot of the angst out there in the world right now in regards to the verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, not guilty on all charges. And I was reviewing social media and everyone's talking about this trial, and you can be a part. 844-967-2789. We've got other important topics like the Build Back Better passing the House today, and some of the comment reaction to that. But of course, this Rittenhouse trial happened in our backyard, at least our Wisconsin backyard, and the whole nation's turned its attention to this trial and the verdict thereof. And I know lots of you have reactions, but the reactions are not really surprise. This is what I saw on the social media, and I sort of agree with this assessment. We're not surprised, we're angry. We feel like this is an unjust ruling. And I understand the legal conclusions. I understood why Act 10 was upheld in the state of Wisconsin. Legally, doesn't mean it's just, doesn't mean it's moral, doesn't mean it's fair. But, you know, we all know life ain't always fair. Evan on the board now. Thank you, Evan, for popping in early so Brian could sneak out early. Here's where I'd like to go. And we'll go to the phones in a minute at 844-967-2789. But we've got brand new sound from Kenosha. This from the defense attorney, Mark Richards, Rittenhouse's defense attorney. A few cuts from him. We're going to play them, and then we'll go back to the phones. Evan, if you would, let's start with cut number 100, Mark Richards on Rittenhouse and their sense of relief.
There were times we doubted the case. There were times we were confident. And to say that we were relieved would be a gross misunderstatement.
Cut 101, Richards. He wishes it hadn't happened.
He has a huge sense of relief for what the jury did to him today. He wishes none of this would have ever happened.
And apparently he's considering, he being Kyle Rittenhouse, moving away. Cut 102. He
has to get on with his life the best he can. I think eventually some anonymity will come back to it. I don't think he'll continue to live in this area.
Yeah, I might move. Defense attorney Mark Richards, new sound coming from Kenosha post-verdict, sharing it with you. First time I've heard most of it. Richards believes it'd be too dangerous for his client to stay. Cut 103.
I don't think he'll continue to live in this area. I think it's too dangerous. He's had 24-hour security since this happened.
Well, and apparently Rittenhouse receiving death threats. And at least historically, we know he usually reacts to death threats by shooting a guy. Let's hear the sound of his defense. Again, post-verdict, cut 104.
To me, it's scary how many death threats we've had. I was answering my phone on the way back from court in Kenosha. My office isn't that far. After the third death threat, I quit answering the phone.
Well, maybe you should stop giving out your phone number. Rittenhouse, according to his defense, had to take the stand. Cut 105.
We had a mock jury, and we did two different juries, one with him testifying, one without him testifying. It was substantially better when he testified. I mean, to a marked degree.
Now, on the stand, Rittenhouse broke down. Some said it looked like acting. And today in the courtroom, as the verdicts were being read, he started quivering on like the third not guilty verdict. And by the fourth one, he was emotional. And, as the final not guilty verdict was read, he collapsed into a chair, and the waiting arms of his defense counsel, not Richards, the other one, the bald guy, who told him, just breathe, give him a little water, reassured him. And then I saw a picture of that, with the attorney on his shoulder, reassuring the client, and someone had captioned it, and seen. A little bit more from the defense. Whether the tears were genuine, been a lot of questions. Well, what's his attorney say? Cut 106.
All I can say is when we prepared Kyle and we worked on his testimony, there were things we couldn't talk about in my office because it got too emotional and he couldn't handle it. He's in, counseling for PTSD.
PTSD? He created the P and the T and the S and the D. I didn't hear that as being a yes. Just my opinion. A little bit more from the defense attorney, Mark Richards, Rittenhouse's defense attorney, cut 107.
I told him when I first met him, when he was in custody, that if he was looking for somebody to go off on a crusade, I wasn't his lawyer.
Well, you did go off in court, at least during final arguments. I found you a little unhinged, Mark Richards. A little bit more from the defense, cut 108 post-verdict.
I don't represent causes. I represent clients. And the only thing that ended up mattering to me was whether he was found not guilty or not.
Well, I guess in that regard, Mark, you did a hell of a job. One more from the defense post-verdict. They didn't start the fire. 109.
He wishes none of this would have ever happened. But as he said when he testified, he did not start this.
He being Rittenhouse, did not start this. Well, that is, as the jury found, apparently self-defense justifiable in this case, but I would blame that more on very, very hard to understand provocation clauses in the Wisconsin statutes on self-defense. And I'm not a lawyer, but as I understand it, you can provoke a fight, provoke a dangerous situation, run down the street 100 yards, and then you can turn around and claim self-defense if you kill a guy who's chasing you for being an active shooter for killing another guy. So your fear and the fact that you've apparently reset your surroundings gives you impunity to future murders, as I understand the statute and the verdict of the jury. 844-967-2789. Going back to you on the phones. Wes, you're next. Welcome. What do you got for us?
Hi. Well, I found the judge's behavior extraordinarily strange. And what piqued my interest was his cell phone going off with the Trump rally welcome tune, as I call it.
Lee Greenwood's proud to be an American.
Yeah, and then he had Kyle take out the names of the jurors from the box or whatever. I'm just was this sending some type of message to the jury? His behavior toward Kyle was more fatherly than from a jurist.
Well, he was certainly very deferential to the defendant, and I think the picture where at one point there was testimony, video or something being reviewed, and you got the judge and you got the defendant looking over his shoulder like he's hanging out watching the Packer game with Pops.
Exactly. And the question that I have is, I thought that in all states militias were illegal. So if that's true, why isn't it being enforced? And then isn't there a further commission of crossing state lines to join an illegal militia?
Wes, I don't think there was any evidence offered at trial that Rittenhouse was a member of any militia. There was a picture of him with a 3%, 3%er, I think they call themselves. They're basically militia members, although it's not illegal to associate with others or even to call yourself a militia. It's the action, it's the conduct. If you go out and shoot somebody, Wes, that is conduct that is criminal. But the simple association is protected under the First Amendment. So it is my belief, Wes, and I'm not a legal scholar, but is my belief, and I have not seen this contradicted, it's not illegal to be part of any association unless you commence a crime. And then you're charged for your actions, not for your associations. That at least is my understanding of the law, Wes. So that evidence was not offered at trial. The photos of him, hanging out with the 3%ers, having a couple beers post hearing, down at a bar with mom, that was not offered at trial because that judge, that quirky judge, as you mentioned, Wes, he thought that might be prejudicial against the defendant. Hate to see that happen. 844-967-2789. Jack, I'll give you like a minute here, pal.
Oh, boy. Well, I wanted to change the subject to the Build Back Better bill.
Awesome. Let's hear about it, Jack. You happy? It's not a done deal yet, but it's passed the House.
Yeah. Well, there's two things I got to say about that. Thing one is, originally they asked for $6 trillion. They cut it down to 3.5. Now it's down to 1.75. That's calling a big victory and a wonderful compromise, a quarter of what's really needed. And that's a Republican approach. It's not a Democratic Party approach. Second thing I want to say is this, though. 1.75 trillion is really not 1.75 trillion because it's over 10 years. If we're going to do a comparable, let's compare it with, say, one single budgetary item called the defense budget.
Yeah. 750 billion per year.
Yeah, that's 7.5 trillion over the same period of time.
Jack, I don't know, and I appreciate your call, and I appreciate you listening up in Merrimack. Jack, I don't know if you'll take any solace in this fact, but the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, scored this new bill, this Build Back Better, 2.4 trillion. It's bigger than promised, Jack. And apparently the deficit created, if you don't accept the premise that all the new resources in the IRS is going to lead to more output of taxation, meaning we're going to collect more money from the tax cheats, even if you set that aside, it's damn near paid for. $376 billion deficit. That's also over a decade. That ain't so bad. 37 billion between a couple of friends. I mean, hell, billionaires lose that in a poker game.
Pat Slattery here of Slattery's Automotive Service. Winter's coming, and that means now's the time for you to start thinking about snow tires. Travel winter roads with ease on Hakkapeliitta snow tires. Hakkapeliitta is the top-of-the-line snow tire, made in Finland and eco-friendly. If it's snowing, they'll get you there. Give me a call at 608-848-6123 to get yours set. Slattery's Automotive Service, your trusted choice for local service and repairs for all your automotive needs.
At Chaz Design Build, our tagline is building a better world, one remodeled home at a time. Simply stated, we want to be a part of the solution to leave the world better than we found it. That's why we've invested in a 20 kilowatt solar array, which provides over 90% of our electrical demand at our shop, office, and design studio. And that's why we invest in local causes which provide opportunities and which confront structural inequality. At Chad's Design Build, we are proud to partner with you, building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
Hey, I'm here from Knuckleheads. Have you seen our new location yet? Come on down to 520 State Street for all your CBD needs. We have a huge selection of gummies, oils, and a variety of other CBD products. We also have a gigantic walk-in humidor. The knowledgeable staff at Knuckleheads will work with you to find exactly what you need. Mention Devil Radio at checkout to get 15% off your next order. Knuckleheads, now at 520 State Street. We'll see you there.
Quality CBD is your Madison cannabis experience destination. Different than the head shops, Quality CBD has gallery quality art, ambiance, and a Bella bar experience that's second to none. Enjoy kombucha and a Bella glass full of vaporized, legal Delta 8 cannabis. Slow down, relax, and enjoy the experience. Only at Quality CBD, 1222 Williamson Street. Come for the Quality CBD, stay for the experience. Quality CBD, 1222 Willie Street.
Taking on Ready Whitey Talk Radio on both sides of the dial from Cross Plains to Cottage Grove. Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
60% of the time, they're right every time. The Devil's Advocates.
Girlies say I'm pretty fly for a white guy. Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Welcome back from the 420 break, taking your Friday grievances here. You just got to dial us up, 844-967-2789. A lot of conversation all week, all month about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. We got a verdict. It's not guilty on all charges. You know that by now. I should have said spoiler alert in case you set your DVR to watch the end at home, but we know the end, not guilty. What we don't know is what the reaction in the streets of Kenosha will be tonight. We'll try to update you all weekend long on this story. Live programming right here on Devil Radio every Saturday. You're going to have to tune in outside the pizza box. One of my favorites at noon. Don't forget him, but live programming starts at 10 tomorrow morning. But what else happened overnight? Well, that pretty fly for a white guy, Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader, he had him a great idea. He was going to go to the House floor and he was going to effectively entertain a House filibuster. Now, this is not an unprecedented act. Apparently, Nancy Pelosi had done one once upon a time, had given a speech of some 8 hours from the House floor. And Kevin McCarthy thought to himself, I can be a bigger D-bag than that. I'm going to stop progress on debate because last night Nancy Pelosi had said we're going to vote on the House. The CBO score came back and it wasn't so bad. The Democrats had to take some heart, the predicted deficits, even setting aside the fact there's a lot more financial enforcement mechanisms between being allocated to the IRS. And you think to yourself, well, I hate the IRS. Yeah, middle-class people, we get audited or get our feet held to the fire. But you know who doesn't? Rich people. Seriously, rich people. They can take these contended write-offs and unless the IRS disallows. So I can use some really quackery sort of claims and then withhold taxes predicated on my quackery conspiracy theory. And unless the IRS forces me to comply, I pay taxes predicated on what I claim. Now, if you're a poor working stiff, you get a W-2 and a paycheck on Friday night, you don't have that option. The government takes your money. They take your taxes. But that's not how it works for business owners. That's not how it works for hedge fund managers and rich people. Well, the enforcement money could literally bring, and the numbers are varied.
60% of the time, they're right.
The numbers are varied. It's not 60%, but the numbers of what could be collected through this higher enforcement number are between like 125 billion a year and 600 billion a year. And the whole 10-year predicted deficit created by the Build Back Better over a decade is 376, 367. I forget the sequence of the numbers, but that would more than offset each year with the new enforcement mechanism that the CBO does not factor into their bottom line number. You factor in new tax revenues from tax cheats, this bill pays for itself, just like Joe Biden promised. So Kevin McCarthy, he goes on the floor last night. And, after 8 hours, you start rambling. You start talking about things that are incongruent, perhaps, to the Build Back Better. And I found it very odd last night. To my impression, At some point, Kevin McCarthy had devolved into describing his sex life. And you think I'm wrong, but I've got the sound and we're going to play it for you right now. I hope it's not too salacious for the FCC. Remember, this is the minority leader on the floor talking about his sex life last night, about 1 a.m, cut 50.
Mad at me, think I spoke too long? But I've had enough. America has had enough.
Oh, he's getting cheers. He's had enough. America's had enough. A little bit more, 51.
I tell you, America, help is on the way.
Oh, he's right.
History repeats itself.
He's cavalry.
And oh, it's going to repeat itself big next November.
Oh, he's going to get big and repeat himself next November. More from Minority Leader McCarthy, cut 52.
I don't know if they think they left. I'm going to stop. I'm not. It's too important.
A little me time for Kevin. He's got his peanut gallery behind him. A very diverse group of white male congressmen. More from the Minority Leader, cut 53.
You're working late. You didn't count on this. Personally, I didn't think I can go this long.
No, neither did your wife. More from Kevin McCarthy, again, describing his sex life late at night. Very troubling. Cut 54.
My 1 minute is almost up.
Well, it's a new record for you, Kevin. Your wife must be so proud. Cut 55.
Madam Speaker, this 1 minute feels almost like 8 hours now.
That's what your wife said. A little bit more of Kevin McCarthy describing his sex life. Cut 56.
This evening showed that no matter the time, the day, or the circumstances, House Republicans will always fight for you, fight for your family, and fight for our country. With that, Madam Speaker, I yield back.
And one final celebration of Kevin McCarthy's very potent speech, cut 58.
I'm over. You hit it at 447. Okay.
New record. A new record. Kevin McCarthy. Boy, you are a stud. Going a full minute. Man, your wife must be so proud of you. Minute that feels like 8 hours. Take that, baby. Come back with us. We are the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. All that, it was futile, Kevin. Nothing that you said last night really mattered one iota. In fact, very few people saw it. Probably your largest audience for your speech, other than a 10 peanut gallery, white congressmen sit behind you, all Republicans. Well, the audience right here, hearing you describe your less than stellar sex life. Isn't this the guy that went and lived on the couch of the rich Republican pollster? He was. Couldn't really explain it either. I think he might have a beard out there. Come back with us. No matter what, there'll be more devils.
In time, you will know the true power of Devil Radio 92.7. It is your destiny.
Local celebrities for 1,000, Rob.
This Mama Award-winning radio personality and local celebrity can be heard Saturday nights on Max Inc. Radio.
That's easy, Rob. Who is Rocker?
Ooh, sorry, Rocker, no.
It's me, Rob. Who is Terry Barr? I'll be co-hosting Max Inc. Radio with Rocker, and we'll be interviewing local artists and previewing where they're going to be playing around town.
Catch Terry Barr and Rocker along with the Max Inc. Radio crew. Listen to local music, interviews, and catch live performances in the Devil's Lair.
Hi, I'm Jenny with Community Living Connections. We are hiring immediately with great pay and benefits. Skip the retail job and do something fulfilling. Help adults with disabilities spend the holidays in their warm and cozy homes. Help them decorate, wrap presents, and visit with loved ones. You can put a smile directly on someone's face. Join us at Community Living Connections and get started in your new career. Text Devil Radio, no spaces, to 72345. That's Devil Radio to 723.
Full acquittal in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a mistrial in Dallas.
I'm Jackie Quinn with an AP News Minute.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
The attorney for 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse says his client is relieved he was found not guilty in the shooting deaths of 2 protesters last year.
When individuals take the stand to defend themselves, that the jury system in this country will recognize their right of self-defense.
Defense attorney Mark Richards. President Biden urged calm and said that he's among those feeling angry and concerned by the verdict. In Texas, in the murder trial of Billy Shamirmir, accused of killing 18 elderly women, the judge has declared a mistrial in the first murder case. A school shooting today in Aurora, Colorado. 3 people hit in a high school parking lot. CDC advisors are not only approving COVID boosters for all adults, they're recommending shots for anyone over 50. A final okay is expected tonight. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Now streaming on Paramount Plus. This is a company town, and the business is incarceration. A new original series from the co-creator of Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan. Your influence within the prisons is unique. Jeremy Renner. We don't break the law, we bend it. Diane Wiest.
You fix-it men, part-time gangsters.
And Kyle Chandler. If you want to know who's running what, come to me. I'm the mayor of Kingstown. Mayor of Kingstown. Now streaming on Paramount Plus. Go to ParamountPlus.com to try it for free. My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that? It's Pepto-Bismol chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Last night, the Dane County Board adopted new supervisor district maps that were created through a nonpartisan process for the first time in history. A panel of citizens, rather than the supervisors themselves, drew the maps without regard to incumbent supervisors and will be in effect for next spring's elections. The Madison Metropolitan School District announced it will launch 3 COVID-19 vaccination clinics, including vaccines for children ages 5 to 11. The clinics will be run in partnership with SSM Health and come as the district is experiencing an uptick in new cases of COVID-19 in recent weeks. The jury in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse will begin their 4th day of deliberations today after not reaching a verdict on Thursday evening. Members of the jury requested to take home copies of the jury instructions, which the judge allowed but instructed them not to be discussed with anyone outside of the jury. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580
AM. The Devil's Advocates. So relevant, they have one foot in tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We'll update your news report. There has been a verdict in the Rittenhouse trial. For those just joining us late, 5 not guilty counts, a full acquittal, if you will. And I don't think people are shocked, but they're certainly angry and angst-filled over it. But anyways, phone lines open. We're taking your grievances. It's Friday. We do it here at 844-967-2789. One of the other big stories overnight was the Build Back Better, supposed to receive a vote. And Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader, well, he did the filibuster-esque sort of show on the House floor last night. He had a peanut gallery filled with white conservative Republicans, quite diverse. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a very dynamic Democratic House member, was tweeting at him and making fun of him. And at certain points during the evening, McCarthy early in the night, people didn't know, was he going an hour or two? They didn't know he intended to go 8 hours. The Dems initially were in the chambers. And there were times where McCarthy was getting all mad. Oh, you Democrats are trying to tell me where I can look. You're trying to shut me down. Well, he kept talking. And the Democratic contingent at differing times, they did interrupt Kevin. He took great umbrage to that. But at one point, I'm going to read this story, a little bit of this story from the Raw Story, one of my favorite sources. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was among those who shouted back overnight during the historic and unhinged, air quotes, marathon speech by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy when the Republican from California stated that there was no person in the country who voted for President Joe Biden last year who did so because they hoped he would act like former President Franklin Roosevelt. You know, the big New Deal, 20th century, you've heard of it, New Deal. Republicans have been trying to roll it back ever since. Quoting a recent comment from Rep. Abigail Spanberger, a Democrat from Virginia, during his speech, in order to argue the Democrats are misguided to make sweeping social investments as part of their Build Back Better Act, which received a final vote in the House on Friday morning, McCarthy stated, "Nobody elected Joe Biden to be FDR." From the gallery in response, a voice can be heard responding, "I did." Later, it was confirmed that this was Ocasio-Cortez. Had to get under his skin a bit, I suspect. 844-967-2789. Got some sound from Speaker Nancy Pelosi as well. Want to play some of this for you. Going to need your help, Evan. Going to start with cut number 60. So Pelosi let this, charade, this kabuki theater go on the House floor because there was really very little she could do to stop it. And so what? I mean, ultimately, Kevin McCarthy, go make an ass for yourself, man. Might have played well on Fox News, but not really anywhere else. But here is what Speaker Nancy Pelosi had to say, because you know what, the Democrats, they passed this historic legislation, at least through the House. It's not a done deal. It's not mission accomplished. Got to get through the Senate. But here's what the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, not Kevin McCarthy, had to say. Cut number 60, Evan.
With the passage of the Build Back Better Act, we, this Democratic Congress, are taking our place in the long and honorable heritage of our democracy, which with legislation that will be the pillar of health and financial security in America.
Well, as long as Joe Biden doesn't throw a kegger at the White House and celebrate the House victory, prematurely like the Republicans did. You recall when they repealed Obamacare in the House and then had a kegger. More from the Speaker. This is a transformative bill. Cut 61, please.
We have the Build Back Better bill that is historic, transformative, and larger than anything we have ever done before.
And although the CBO did not score it as such, there are a lot of indications, and CBO, it's predictive math. It's not exacting science. They're still speculating. But if you include the new enforcement mechanisms, the resources empowering the IRS to collect from tax cheats, this bill, it is fully paid for. Cut 62.
Build Back Better is fully paid for. It reduces the deficit and grows the economy.
Well, that's a little contradiction with the CBO scoring, but of course, top line, bottom line, speculative math, and no accounting for any predicted higher collected taxes. So, maybe she's right, maybe she's wrong, but that's what Speaker Nancy Pelosi has to say. And, comparing her to Kevin, I believe her. Evan got more. I'm going to need your help here still. This bill, folks, this bill's for you. Cut 63, please.
If you are a parent, a senior, a child, a worker, if you are an American, this bill's for you.
More from Speaker Pelosi. She says she'll be brief. I hope she is. 64.
With respect for those who work in this Capitol, and as a courtesy to my colleagues, I will be brief.
A little snark back at McCarthy's 8-hour plus escapade the night before. A little bit more from Speaker Pelosi. It's been a long time. 65.
One thing I'm particularly excited about is family medical leave, and that is a fight that we have always been engaged in for a long time.
More from the Speaker. Cut 66. Values.
For us, it's about not just about legislation; it's about values. And the values that this legislation represents.
More from Speaker Pelosi. Infrastructure, good, but that's not all. Cut 67.
He has said that the infrastructure bill was very, very important, and we agree. But it was not the sum total of his vision for how we do build.
Now, the House has passed this bill. What is the plan for the U.S. Senate? Cut 68, please.
We have different committee system in the House than they do in the Senate. So this bill will now be reshaped to their committees. And at that point, we'll see what where we need to, shall we say, reconcile.
Yes, reconcile. So Speaker Nancy Pelosi, what chances do you give the Build Back Better bill in the U.S. Senate, the one you passed through the House? Cut lucky 69.
90-some% of the bill was written together, House, Senate, White House. There were some differences at the end, and we'll deal with those as we go forward.
844-967-2789. I see a familiar name, been far too long. My pal Gary from Sussex, my conservative love muffin. How you doing, Gary?
Hi, Mike. It's nice to talk to you guys again.
You as well. Okay. Thanks for listening, Gary. You calling about the Rittenhouse to Build Back Better, or just to bust my balls, Gary?
No, I believe as a conservative or a liberal, doesn't matter. I believe that if you believe in the rule of law, I believe that you got it right. Now, I know there's a lot of liberals that were hoping it would go the other way. And I thought it possibly could, especially after the jury taking like 4.5 days.
Sure.
That the judge allowed that you could get them on a reduced sentencing. But if you look at the rule of law, the kid went there. He was stupid for doing it. If it was my kid, he'd be grounded for life. But the fact is, he went there not going out there to try to shoot anybody, but when he went there trying to protect property, and people started chasing him and trying to grab his gun and stuff like that.
Gary,
okay,
let me interrupt you for a moment, though, Gary, because I don't disagree with what you said. I think this is a just verdict in light of Wisconsin law. I think this was the only way, or damn near the only way, the jury could find. So I support the conclusion. I support the acquittal predicated on the way the law is written. But Gary, when you say this kid just came up to Wisconsin to protect some property, well, Gary, you and I both know you don't have the right to go protect somebody else's property. I have the right to stay on my property and protect my property by armed measures if necessary. But Gary, this kid's good intentions, if that's indeed what they were, and it's hard to know what motivated him, but even if we take him at his word, you don't have the right to go defend somebody else's property with lethal force, sir.
But you know what, Mike, I agree. I think the situation that what he got himself into was way above and beyond a 17-year-old can comprehend.
Sure.
He thought he was going to be the hero. He was in the police youth cadet stuff. The cops were parked 4 blocks away and just allowing damage and burning and everything else and looting or whatever else was going on. He should have done what he did. I certainly wouldn't. I own an AR. I'm not going to go down the street to protect the bank or anything. I'm not going to do that. I just don't want to get involved in possible shooting. And
because that would be putting yourself in harm's way, right, Gary? You're not going to go defend someone else's property. You're not going to go stand down some armed robbers at the bank and protect the bank's money, right? I mean, hell, those car dealerships that burned down, Gary, might have been a damn shame, but I bet they were insured, just like your account down at the bank is FDIC insured. Gary, that bank robber ain't really getting away with your money. You know what I mean?
The only way, right, I agree. The only way that I would stand out and protect property would be my own property or my neighbors next door. If a gang came in there and they started looting and started firebombing my house, you're darn tootin' I'd be out there standing protecting my house and my neighbors. But
would you protect it with an AR-15 or a fire hydrant? With a fire extinguisher, Gary?
I'd have my AR and all 30 magazines packed all the way.
Well,
I just pray to God that I don't ever have to do that.
Well, Gary, what circumstance in life is ever going to lead you to, I mean, God knows, but short of a rapture or a civil war, Gary, when are you going to have to go out and protect your property against a riotous mob in Sussex?
I hope that never happens. And I hope it does. I hope that everybody has calmer thoughts and thinking about all this stuff, because if it went the other way, I don't know. To me, it would have been a real problem. And because I believe they got it right. I think people are going to have common sense and realize, now, if you want to change the laws in the state of Wisconsin, fine. But the fact is, the jury got it right. They sat there and they listened all those hours or the months.
I'm not questioning the jury one iota, Gary. I think they arrived at the conclusion that they felt in their logic in their hearts. I have no problems whatsoever with the jury or their verdict under the circumstances that were presented to them. That's not the problem. Do
you believe that he's a white supremacist?
I believe that he hung out with some white supremacists. I believe that he was white supremacist adjacent. And Gary, you talked about AR-15s. I've shot an AR-15. I was in the military. And the last guy I went shooting with was Rebecca Clayfish's husband, Joel. Joel took me out to the range. We had a very safe day. He's a good range guy. You know, he's very safe, always pointed down range, all that kind of stuff. He was very good about taking me and my little buddy Dominic to the range. And Gary, it's not the gun aspect of it per se. You know what I mean? But it is this sense. I'm not clear when I see Rebecca Clayfish talking about law and order, you know, the law and order. Well, this kid was effectively putting himself in a vigilante circumstance. He might have wanted to be a cop, Gary, but he ain't a cop. He's a kid. And he put himself in this circumstance, the very circumstance that you and I, as perhaps older, wiser men, would never put ourselves in, Gary, because
I agree.
He put himself purposefully in harm's way. And then when he felt endangered, he used that as justification to kill.
His mother said when she was being interviewed by Sean Hannity, said that if her son had to do it all over again, that she thinks he would have done it all over again. I thought that was an insane, crazy answer. Yeah. I certainly would never have done that. If I would have tried to be a hero when I was 17 and got myself thinking that I might go to prison for the rest of my life, I would never take that chance again.
Gary, I absolutely agree with you, man. I've never agreed with you so much, and that makes me a little worried. Gary, glad you're listening. Glad you're out there, man. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Keep listening on the Devil Radio app. Maybe I'll be sneaking back in your town someday soon. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates playing in your town right now. Dial us up, 844-967-2789.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
At Knuckleheads, our knowledgeable staff knows the ins and outs of CBD. Whether you're a veteran of cannabis like the Devil Radio team or a first-time customer, the Knuckleheads team has the information to answer all your CBD questions. Never heard of a tincture? We got you covered. Looking for something to address those achy joints? We got just the thing. Stop into our new location at 520 State Street and mention Devil Radio to our knowledgeable staff to get 15% off your order today. Knuckleheads, your one-stop shop for CBD in Madison.
Hey, this is Rocker, and I'm back on the patio at Salvatore's Tomato Pies on East Wash. I'm having a brand new cocktail you just have to try. It's called Divide and Concord. It features Rocker vodka along with Concord grape, thyme, St. Elizabeth's dram, and a touch of lemon lime. Ask for it by name, Divide and Concord at Salvatore's Tomato Pies. Find Rocker vodka and Rocker rye whiskey at Vic Pierce on Sherman Avenue. Please drink responsibly.
Hey folks, Stephanie Miller here. As an enlightened progressive, you know how important it is to do business in accordance with your politics. That's why Solidarity Realty is my favorite real estate firm in Madison. Solidarity Realty is a local independent realty company that lives their values. They provide outstanding expertise and protect your best interests while building community and promoting sustainability and diversity. Viva la resistance! Find them today at solidarityrealty.com. And don't forget, tell them Stephanie Miller sent you.
Greetings, everyone. This is Nate Tim inviting you to my show, Lay of the Land, about life and politics in rural Wisconsin. Join me every Thursday at 7 p.m. Join me this week for my special guest, Bill Hodseth. See you then.
Devil Radio, your fix for progressive talk from Middleton to Monona, always streaming at darnwi.com.
He's a real nowhere man sitting in.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the 4 o'clock happy hour. It rolls on. Your call is always welcome here. Gary, I even take Gary's calls. Gary's an okay sort of guy. Went out for dinner once with Gary. Gary invited the radio crew out for dinner, but Gary wouldn't buy the drinks. And I suspect Gary saved himself a lot of money that night because, to enjoy Gary's company, you got to be at least 2 sheets, if you know what I'm saying. But be well, Gary. Keep listening. Be like Gary. Call the Devil's Advocates, 844-967-2789. JR, I see you. You're next. And you can be like JR as well. But I've got a brief op-ed. The Wisconsin State Journal editorial board dropped this about 42 minutes ago. I read it during the break. It's short. I'll share it with you. Kyle Rittenhouse verdict sends a chilling message to Wisconsin and the rest of the country. This wasn't the message Wisconsin or our nation needed to hear, even if the jury correctly followed the law. I agree with that part. Teenager Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted on all charges Friday in the fatal shootings of 2 people, Joseph Rosenbaum, 36, and Anthony Huber, 26, and the wounding of Gage Grosskreutz, now 28, during a chaotic night in Kenosha on August 25th of 2020. The deadly violence followed protests, rioting, and arson in response to a police shooting of a black man, Jacob Blake, by a white officer. I suspect most of you know that story by now. Back to the op-ed. The disappointing verdict is sure to embolden militant people who seek to take the law into their own hands, and calling those people vigilantes. It also could increase and complicate self-defense claims if more people carry and use firearms in the streets. That's a scary prospect, according to the op-ed editorial board. But further violence in response to the verdict won't help anyone. Our civil society must remain calm in Kenosha, in Madison, and across the country. Rittenhouse is no hero, as some of his defenders pretend. He behaved like a vigilante and didn't deserve to walk free, given his recklessness. Yet the law, unfortunately, skews in the favor of shooters who claim self-defense. That needs to change. What Gary say, change the law? It's hard to do with gerrymandering, but, I get the point, Gary. Back to the op-ed. Rittenhouse, then 17, wasn't making anyone safer by parading through crowds of angry people with a semi-automatic rifle strapped to his chest, and according to prosecutors, pointing it at people before the conflict escalated. What Rittenhouse and other gun-toting self-appointed protectors, air quotes, of Kenosha needed to hear from our court system is that they are not the judge and jury when things go awry. The answer to unrest, including the torching of homes and vehicles, is a well-trained police force and the National Guard. Rittenhouse of Antioch, Illinois, only complicated the difficult job of law enforcement by showing up armed in Kenosha, where some of his relatives lived. One of the men Rittenhouse killed, Rosenbaum, was acting odd and aggressive when Rittenhouse shot him. Another victim swung and hit Rittenhouse with a skateboard after Rosenbaum was shot. The third victim had a gun. But Rittenhouse wasn't an innocent bystander, and some of his victims assumed he was an active shooter who needed to be stopped, prosecutors said. Rittenhouse was engaging passerbys with abrupt and threatening behavior. Much of the case hinged on whether Rittenhouse had provoked the others, and carrying an AR-15 down a crowded street isn't provocative. What is? Rittenhouse even got off on the gun charge despite his weapon from a friend because he couldn't legally purchase it. Blame the state legislature, not the judge who dismissed that charge for that. Wisconsin law allows teenagers to carry firearms for hunting, but the statute is so convoluted that Rittenhouse's lawyers were able to convince the judge that Rittenhouse could legally carry his long rifle in an urban setting where hunting isn't allowed. The legislature must fix that law so immature people can't cause more bloodshed. An untrained teenager with a semi-automatic weapon puts everyone, including police, at greater risk of conflict and harm. The legislature should also narrow the law that allows people to openly carry firearms. Good luck with that, at least here in Wisconsin. If Rittenhouse had not been flaunting his rifle, he wouldn't have attracted so much attention, and this tragedy could have been avoided. It's not like he was defending his home or his property, right, Gary? If Rittenhouse was justifying his actions, how does this apply if two people openly carry guns and point them at each other? Whose self-defense claim takes priority? I guess the one that lives. My opinion. Back to the op-ed. Our state should be discouraging standoffs with guns rather than encouraging more people to arm themselves out of fear or revenge. Policymakers, more than any jury, are in a position to set clear and reasonable rules. The jury was under enormous pressure to decide a complicated case after hearing more than 30 witnesses over 8 days of testimony. They had to follow the law as written and the instructions of the judge. Did Rittenhouse face an unlawful threat that night in Kenosha? And was his use of force reasonable and necessary? The jury ultimately answered yes. And we respect their decision, even though we don't like it. Responsible citizens who want to discourage similar tragedies should pressure their elected leader for smarter gun laws. We, the people, through our democracy, must demand that this troubling saga never happens again. The editorial board of Christopher White, Jason Adrians, Scott Milred, Phil Hands, and others. 844-967-2789. JR, I appreciate your patience. Welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, Kurt. Happy Friday.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a happy Friday, man. It's been a so-so Friday, but welcome to it, man.
Yeah, that is an understatement. So I just want to point out, and I just joined your show like a half hour ago, so forgive me if this has already been mentioned, but the prosecution was the same DA's office that declined to prosecute the cop that shot Jacob Blake. And the way he approached this, by basically framing this as an active shooter, this is just my opinion. I think that they intentionally threw the case. I think that they wanted an outcome to chill potential protests, because to have an active shooter argument in a state that has such a deep established and accepted gun culture, that seems to me like a stretch. I mean, so again, that's just my opinion, but I really think that this was the desired outcome.
JR, I appreciate your opinion. I would disagree with it ever so slightly. I do believe that Rittenhouse at the time in Kenosha that night, he was literally an active shooter. He had just killed a man and he was being quote unquote pursued by the mob, JR, and he was fleeing the mob. And apparently that resets under the provocation clause of Wisconsin statute, his necessary, he can effectively kill a guy. Now he can defend a guy or defend himself against others if he feels somehow threatened. Well, you're carrying a gun. People are trying to take it away from you. You are an active shooter and apparently justified, acquitted on all charges. Thank you all for listening to the Devil's Advocates. Earl Ingram is next. Have a great weekend. Go Badgers, go Packers, go hug somebody.
I'm Kirk Bangstad, and I own the Minocqua Brewing Company in Deep Red, northern Wisconsin, and I have a super PAC. We make